Hello and welcome to week 24, to week 24 of building Kamino. Today we're going to be working on one of the rooms I'm most hyped to build within Kamino, that being the mess hall, or the canteen, or the food fight room. Basically, it's another scene which I wasn't initially anticipating to build within Kamino because it was shown in the Bad Batch. It's basically where it's a canteen. There's not too much to say about it besides that, but I'm very excited to build it because it's going to be one of the bigger rooms within Kamino because there's going to be a lot of clones in there to do some stuff with, and I'm excited to play around and see what I can come up with. So let's get straight into designing it.
Move it, troopers! On the double! Fire!
Okay, so as we can see here, we've got the two rooms we built last week, that being the spoon room and the disco room. Just interesting that we decided to make those, but up here in this big gap is going to be the mess hall, and I think this is actually going to be the last room of the main hangar of Kamino. There's like been tons and tons of every single week we've made at least one new room for this place, and this will be the last time we get to do that because yeah, this is filling up the final gap. This isn't going to be the last update of building Kamino. There's still a lot of things I need to get done, such as finishing the roof, as well as putting all of the platforms together and actually making some more platforms, as well as connecting it to the water and detailing the water and a bunch of other stuff, but we'll get to that when we come to it. First, I need to decide how I'm going to actually build this room. You can see that while it does look like such a big space, I'm not sure if I'm actually going to be able to use all of it, because the wall from the Bad Batch's quarters, if you can see, actually bends out because of the manic way I built that room with all the hinges and whatnot. So the actual brick line is going to have to start here on this lane of studs going up to, so basically that means that this is all just going to be like covered up with walls, and then you can see this wall does actually connect before there. So I may just do like a quick wall like going around and down, so I do get a little bit more of this space, or I may just start the line going down there. I'm not sure yet. It's going to be quite an awkward room because it's much more narrow than it is wide, where it's kind of more squarish in the actual show. But anyway, let's get into it and let's start with the wall design. I've gone for this kind of mixture here of white and sand blue, which I think is quite a good color combination and looks fairly accurate to the show. I know it's not perfect and should probably include a little bit more grey, but I just like this to look like a little bit different. You can see I've used the sand blue in the bottom two bricks and then kind of created up in this pattern, which I've kind of shaped using wedge plates, and I think they look pretty good even if the texture isn't perfect. And you can also see next to it I've used this large airplane piece to do the main shaping, and I think it looks really nice. So now I can make a start on making the roof to this room. Now I've got this really interesting idea to make it. I basically incorporated these kind of like fairy lights, which I've got held in by clips and is kind of held down using an arch piece. This was something really different and actually a much cheaper and easier way to light up this mock than what I was doing before with the official Lego lights. And this is kind of what it looks like together when I've kind of built a second wall in. But you can see how that's kind of built in together and how the lights look down like that. I will have to make a change later because you can see when this is in, you can kind of see the bottoms of all the lights and it kind of attaches the camera's attention way too easily. When I take off the other lights, you can just see how bright this room does make it. So I do need to move those lights so they are out of the actual room and kind of like hidden more into the roof, if that makes sense. But what that will actually means, because you can see the roof doesn't, like, it's not tall enough to fit there. So what I'm going to have to do is add another ring, like another layer onto that like folding up wall and build it a little bit taller. So let's see how that looks and when we add in the third wall. So now that I've got all the engine pieces, I can create that third wall kind of held in together with some hinge bricks, and I really like how this room looks, and it looks even better when I get these lights on. I mean, just look at that. I think that's fantastic. I'm so happy with how this is turning out. I think in terms of the lighting, this is my best lit room of the mock yet. And I just think it looks really cool, even if it is simple, just because adding lights just makes your mocks look so much better. But yeah, I'm super proud of how this looks now, and now to actually put some tiling into the floor, I think. Okay, so it's a little bit later and you can see I've inserted all of the tiles into the floor. Some of them don't look perfectly even as I'd want them to, but that's just kind of how it happens when you go with 1x tiles instead of 2x, but I had these in the pick-a-brick wall, so I could get them a lot cheaper this way, so that's what I went with. You can see there's a bunch of jumpers all around the place because that's where I'm going to be attaching the tables and the chairs and the minifigures, because this is going to be quite a minifigure heavy room if you couldn't already tell based off the scene. And if you want to know what this back area is where all of the random colors are on, that's for this little assembly which I've just put together, which is basically like where the food actually comes from in the mess hall. So it's like this own little build which you can actually just attach right in the back there, just in the center. So that's going to be kind of like the center piece to the room, or just what makes up the back wall, which you do see quite prominently in the show. As you can see here, I'm not going to be able to fit many tables and chairs. I think I'm just going to be able to do the 1 table and the 2 benches around them, which were seen in the show. I'll use the one where the Bad Batch themselves were sitting because that obviously makes the most sense, and I'm just going to have the table here and then the chairs attached across there, and then just have minifigures all around them, and I think that'll look pretty good. So let's figure out how to make a table and chairs. Okay, so first off we've got the chairs, and these are a very simple design. If you look in the show, they've kind of got these really weird chairs which kind of like go up at this angle, like start to slant down at this angle, then go down again at this angle, which are really complicated to build, especially in Lego when it's such a small scale as this. So I ended up using these kind of like hinge plates, which I used a ton in the Bad Batch quarters, and I've ended up using a bunch of in this mock. So much so that I've kind of run out of them in useful colour, so I need to build some more. Or order some more, I mean. So you can see I've kind of got like them going up and then along and then down, just like how I mentioned before. This black I will replace to the 1x light grey ones when I get them in, but that's just how it looks for now. And that'll kind of like attach like that, and then you can see it's got the studs so it can seat minifigures on it. So, and then I've got a second one over here, which is just like that, and you can see there's Crosshair, who's going to be eating. I'm going to do the scene mid food fight. I was considering doing it when Wrecker was throwing the plates, but I think this is going to be more fun to play around with. There, one thing that right now I'm just going to have my purest custom Bad Batch members on, just because that's what I've got just now, but obviously when I get the set in, they're not going to have their helmets on. I'm just letting you know that, because right now these have just got random like black heads underneath and whatnot. So they won't have their helmets on in the finished product. There will also be an Omega in this room, which I don't believe I put in the mock yet. So this is where my Omega's going to live in here. So once she's been created, she'll go in here as well. But anyway, let's make the table. Okay, so there's the table. Now you can kind of see I'm using more of these hinge plates. Again, those are slightly too long, so I need to get the smaller ones. And they've kind of got these wedges going down into a cheese slope into the ground, and kind of this snottish style floor with just a small connection in the middle, just to kind of create this like bent shape, which you do see in the actual show. I've got a bunch of different food pieces on top of here. The food I know in the actual show was kind of like just on trays. I think I'm gonna have a little bit more fun if I just use Lego food pieces and just have them in minifigure hands, just to make a more fun scene for a food fight rather than just have them all with like 2x4 tiles. I think this will be more fun to do, so I'm just going to have them holding different pieces of food. So you can see we've got a bunch of different types of foods here. And then I've got Crosshair, probably which can have the only accurate food, which is eating from a bowl of soup. And then that's pretty much that. But now is the really fun bit, where I'm going to add in all of the other clones and all the other minifigures into the scene. For the generic like clones just in the room, I'm going to go with this design, I think, which I can quickly go with. This is kind of like what I mean about what I'm going to do with them holding random bits of food, where I'm going to go with the same animated phase 1 armor, just because that makes it more consistent with the other clones within this mock. Like, because don't forget the bottom section is inspired from season 3, and those are all animated style, so I'm going to keep that going on here, because they don't have the helmets on, so they could still look like phase 2, but just with the animated bodies, just for consistency. For the heads, I'm using the newer style head from the 501st Battle Pack, and largely because when these guys' helmets are off, they'll have that same skin tone, so to make it consistent between the two groups, these guys are also having that skin tone. And then the hairpiece, all of the clones in that scene kind of have like the generic clone hair, which is what this piece represents. So I need to get quite a lot of those in from Bricklink to kind of like fill out the room. So there's one. Let's put in the rest of the minifigures and then I can give you a deep dive on the scene. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this may be the best thing I've ever made. Here is the currently finished, bar a couple of minifigure parts, the mess hall of Kamino. Look at this. This is amazing. It may look a little bit overstuffed at first, but that's kind of what you expect because it is meant to be a giant food fight. And you can see I am missing a couple of the hair pieces and the official Bad Batch and Omega, of course. But we'll start from my favourite detail in the back here, which is a clone who has got an entire pig who he's throwing at Echo, who's on the floor, because at the end of that scene Echo kind of gets whacked over the head and I've got him being hit by a giant pig. In front of them you've got Tech fighting a clone with some apples, and then you've got Crosshair sat in the middle just eating his soup. And then we've got the main table. You can see that Wrecker is just throwing this clone across the seat. And then there's this other guy with the ice cream who's coming at him. I like this guy's face quite a lot, how scared he is. And you can see there's this guy behind him who's trying to whack him with a carrot. And then you can see over here, there's Hunter, who's got a guy with a banana attacking him, as well as a guy with a donut, and then a guy with... Where's his... He's got... You can see behind that guy's head, kind of. There's meant to be, there you go, there's a steak that he's holding. You can't see it that well, but once there's the official Bad Batch in here and the headpieces and Omega, I'm not sure where Omega's going to go, maybe in like this gap here, because that's the only gap that's really left. That'll be this room pretty much done, and I'm over the moon with how well this turned out, and hopefully you liked it as well. But anyway, that's about it for this week's episode of Building Kamino. If you like this week's update, like the video, that's what the like button's there for. Comment your favourite part of this week's update. I'm really happy with how this room came out. It's definitely one of my favourites. And subscribe so you do not miss next week's update, which should be finishing up the main hangar of Kamino, so that should be a lot of fun. But thank you so much for watching this week's update. As always, I really do appreciate it, and goodbye. And of course, to wrap up this week's episode, we have the named clone section, which is basically where I go through people who are at my live stream and wanted a clone named after them with their own accessory. Today we have Bob, Cross Hunt, Bacon University Student, the Pizza Clone Man Clone, and Toby. Thank you all so much for watching.